Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the ScaleForEtail webinars. And we're really excited today because we've got one of our very own members who's presenting, and that's Cara. And before we go into it, I just thought I would check out who's here, and if you could also just add what room you're in, that would be really great, just so that we can get a bit of an idea of how it is that you're participating in this webinar. So jump right in there and let us know if you're alive, well, and doing this webinar inside, outside, wherever it is. Michael in the lounge, that's great. Christian in the attic. Pete from the front room. Cool. Tanya from the garden. Oh, wow. That's amazing. Oh, look at that. People have got offices in Oxfordshire. That's very posh, John. Summer house. Very nice. And the dinner table. Okay. Yeah, that's really good. And as you can see, I'm in my home office, and Cara's in her kitchen. And
nice one, Martin.
You're in your, what's Martin doing?
He's next to his neighbor with a super loud strimmer.
Oh, wow. You really want to get rid of that strimmer, don't you? Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, I hope you're enjoying quarantine or lockdown or whatever it's called. I woke up actually on Monday morning with a swollen eye, which I still have. And Richard jokingly said that I must make sure that I mention to you all that that he didn't hit me, that this has actually come from an insect.
He's not pressuring you to say that, is he?
Yeah, he's got a gun behind my back over here. No, it's really weird, actually. It's still there. I wake up feeling like I've got this great big thing coming out in front of my eye. It's really weird. Good. Anyway, so we're going to have a really exciting time today because we're not only going to be doing a bit of talky stuff, listening to someone who's very interesting and successful, but also we're going to make sure that we spread the love and invite other people we'll talk about other listings and actually give some personal coaching. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Cara.
Okay, Cara's struggling with technology at the moment because my PowerPoint keeps crashing. So just one tiny moment.
Okay, cool.
Can you do a little dance or something like to entertain?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Well, my screen has actually frozen.
Oh, God.
So I've got a very weird image of myself taking my glasses off, but I haven't yet. And that's what I'm staring at. So let's go back to seeing who's here now that you can't see me put my glasses on. What do you mean you're working from home? That's so boring. Come on.
Everyone's working from home, right?
I was very curious to see whether anyone would admit that they were working from the toilet or perhaps
in the bath.
In the bath or something, exotic like that. Joking aside, I did once have a call. This was in the old days when I had a job, and I actually was interviewing somebody, and they went to the toilet in the middle. But you could hear it. You could hear everything. You could hear, it was very graphic in many ways.
Thank you for sharing.
Anyway, he did not get the job, as you might imagine. It wasn't something that was very impressive.
Right, I'm going to just try and kick off and not worry about this. And if it freezes, it freezes.
What happened, Cara? Your screen frozen?
Oh, it keeps blowing. It keeps.
Is this your screen or
PowerPoint? It keeps sort of going up and down, up and down. It's being a bit of a pain in el bot, but don't worry.
Okay.
I think
let's try it. See how we go.
If you need to, you can send it to one of us on Messenger or something. And,
okay.
We can make sure that we put it up on screen.
But yeah, I'm tell you what I'm going to do, just as a safety thing, just because I'm a safety girl, is I'm just going to quickly print it off, because if I print it, it doesn't really matter because I can talk my way through it
Okay.
without any problems whatsoever. So I'm just checking my printer is now working, hopefully.
Okay. Cool.
We should have done it. We did do a technology check, didn't we? But I'm just going to go and check my printer. I'll be back in 1 second.
That's fine. We did do a tech check. You're right. Absolutely.
What countries are people in? I see there's someone said they're in the Philippines. A couple in the Philippines. Who else is elsewhere?
Oh, somebody's in the Philippines. Wow.
Scotland is far more glamorous.
Now
It is apparently printing, so
Okay.
that's good. I've got back up, then I'm fine. I just don't want it to go down mid.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we are. It's going off now. There we go. Print, 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 print.
So one of the other things that you might wish to do, so we have somebody who's going to come on stage later, and actually we're going to talk about their listing. But if anybody would like to add one of their listings to this, well, so we've got some other listings that we're going to review, but we're quite happy to give you guys feedback on your own listing. We can only take about 2 or 3 maybe in total, and we do have 1 or 2 in our back pocket. But if anybody here has a burning desire to do that, then just
Post in the questions tab.
Yeah.
With a link to the post in the questions tab with a link to the product or the ASIN, or you can message me or Shelley on Facebook, and we can then just put it onto the. We can review it later, so then it wouldn't have your name linked to the ASIN if you want to try and maintain some anonymity.
Yes, if you're a bit shy, that's fine, and I'm shy, so I get it. Totally. I would always be shy about my listings. So if you want to be anonymous, just ping it to us on Facebook. And if you're happy to own it and come on stage, you don't have to come on stage, then put it into the questions. So if you look on your right-hand screens, you all have a chat box and then you have a questions box. And it would be really great if you put your questions in the questions area, and that way we can make sure that we respond to them. Cara, you ready?
I am. Just 1 second. There we go.
Oh,
Thank
wow.
God. So that's okay. So I've got a backup in case it all goes pear-shaped. Right. Okay. So now what do I? Now do I do the screen sharing thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm so technical. Right. Okay.
Unprofessional is the new professional. See, this is the new normal.
Oh, yeah. Well, someone's just asked what the length of the show today, given that last week was over 3 hours. I've got a 12-year-old daughter, so I won't be 3 hours because I'll be going well over her feeding range, which won't make me very popular. Right. So I think I just hit actions.
Roughly 1 hour is the answer, Philippa.
And application window. There we go. And right. So I can just do it now. Oh, hold on. Now, how do I do it so that I can see? Oh, no. Hold on. Sorry. This is, I'm being more.
People watching wouldn't know that we rehearsed this before we went live, would they?
I know. I'm such a technical. See, it comes out like that, and then anyway, I'm just going to have to go for it. So can you see that?
Nope.
No.
We haven't shared it yet.
Oh, gosh. Hold on. We did it before.
I know. That's Shelley.
Hi, guys. Sorry, I had to
So it's
plug out
fine.
back in.
So yeah, it's
Right, but if I put it onto presentation, it takes over the whole of my screen. That's the thing.
well, that's fine. You just won't be able to see yourself in the Zoom chat, but we'll be able to see the window, and you can present from that.
Right. Okay.
Not Zoom.
But see, I need to control that. So when I do that, then I can hit.
You should be able to control the
buttons.
presentation. Yeah.
Ah, right, there we go. See, we had done this. Oh no, I pressed delete. Oh God. Right, there we go. I'm so professional. This is ridiculous.
Let's go.
Right, so can you see this presentation
Yes.
now?
Yes.
Hurrah! Right, I can't see anything. Is that right?
Yes.
That's fine. You can see. As long as you can see the presentation, that's all you need to see.
And
We'll take care of the chat.
Yeah, I can do it. Right, okay. So if I do that, no, right, okay, I'm going back in. Right, there we go, I'm a genius. Right, okay, so one of the things that you're probably going to find out about me is that I am a genius, but clearly not at doing new style PowerPoint presentations on a new system. Anyway, so my name is Cara 𝗱𝐬𝐬. I am actually the founder of a business called SnoozeShade, which I'm going to talk to you about. And I'm also, I also run another sideline, which is helping Amazon sellers improve their sales on Amazon. So who am I and why should you listen to me? Well, that's a very good point. So I'll just move on to the next slide. Now, in all seriousness, my background is not of a mad inventor, which is what I have actually effectively become. That's one of my favorite characters, 𝗱𝗀𝘀𝘀𝘀 Potts from 𝗱𝗀𝘀𝘀𝘀𝘀 Chitty Bang Bang on the right, the mad inventor. My background is actually in marketing. So I worked on the launch of Amazon in the UK when it was a book warehouse in Slough. We launched eBay. I launched the National Lottery in the UK. This is going way back because I am actually very old, to 1994. Also launched online grocery shopping with Tesco back in 99. So, for example, I remember ringing up, it was actually a magazine I later went to work for, Good Housekeeping, and saying to them about the fact there was this new amazing technology that meant that people could actually shop without having to go into the supermarket. And they were very horrified at the thought because their customers would not want anyone else touching their tomatoes. Well, as we know now, that's not the case, and everyone loves other people touching their tomatoes, so to speak. And I also worked on consumer brands like Wagon Wheels, biscuits, on a sports sponsorship campaign. I worked for the Chartered Institute of Marketing, LucasArts, etc. So I had a career that lasted about 15 or 16 years before I decided that I was going to do something different. And it wasn't really a decision, it was more a calling. Because they say that necessity is the mother of invention, but in this case, motherhood was what made the necessity of the invention. And the reason there is a wheelchair and a stressed mother and a crying baby in the picture is because, unfortunately, I ended up having a baby, my daughter, who was a very much longed for IVF baby. And one of the reasons I stopped my career was to try and have children. And Holly was the result. And I was in a wheelchair for about 9 months. So it took me quite a long time to get back up on my feet, literally. And I used to go out quite a lot with Holly with the pram, and I wanted her to sleep. And if she didn't sleep, I used to get the baby picture at the bottom, which was a grumpy baby who then didn't sleep at night. And so therefore it made it stressful for everyone. And so what I decided was that I needed basically a blackout blind for babies that would work on a pram or a pushchair, because that's what I needed. And I needed something that would help my daughter sleep safely, using coats and blankets and muslins and things like that that fell off and distracted her wasn't an option. There were a few sunshades out on the market, but unfortunately they allowed baby to see out. Well, I say unfortunately, but when you want them to go to sleep, you don't want them to see out. So I had a light bulb moment, and this is SnoozeShade, which is usually, I have to say, it's usually the #1 best-selling product in the sunshade category. At the moment, I think it's about 3 or 4 since COVID has been around. God knows what's going on with rankings, etc. But SnoozeShade, this is SnoozeShade Original, which is the first of about 13 different products. So I've got a variety of products that help babies that are sort of 0 to 6 months, some for 6 months plus, some to help with car seats and travel cots. And we've also developed a book recently using the KDP format as well, which has been quite fun. I like doing different things. So my background in PR marketing has really been quite helpful. So I've been in numerous times. I've been in pretty much every national newspaper. I've been on most national TV stations and on national radio, talking about the business sometimes, talking about, and also quite a lot of the time, it's been relating to the product. So the sort of concept of starting up, entrepreneurialism, etc. It's also been spotted on the prams of quite a few celebrities, and I've got numerous thank you notes from lots of lovely celebs. I have to say, personally, I was very excited about Amanda Seyfried from Mamma Mia, because I love that film. And also, more excitingly, I love Grey's Anatomy. And so I was incredibly excited when April Kettner sent me a thank you note for her SnoozeShade. So superficially, I launched the business back in 2010, and it looked amazing. It was incredible. Superficially outside, I was in every major UK retailer. I went the normal route, I suppose, which was I had no experience in manufacturing or retail or anything when I started my business back in 2010. So I had to learn everything that I could from other people. So I went to a trade show, I took a prototype before I launched the product. And that's where I met up with, I had an order placed on the spot for 𝗳𝐳𝐬𝐬𝐻. And then I got a distributor, and then I got another, I think I had 22 distributors at one point, sort of worldwide. And everything looked absolutely fantastic from the outside. And then I had to do a major pivot. And this is one of my favorite scenes from Friends, with the pivot scene, because that's pretty much what I had to do. In 2014, I went from thinking that everything was fine, etc., to getting divorced. And when I was getting divorced, unfortunately, or whatever, it depends on how you phrase it, my ex-husband, I knew I was not going to get a penny from him in terms of maintenance, etc. And he and I, by the way, are incredibly good friends. But these are the facts. And so I had to look at the business in a very different light. So I had to look at it as, was it going to be capable of putting food on the table? And in the current format, it was not. And I wasn't making enough profit. I wasn't making enough money. So basically, I had to turn to doing things in a different way. So I started seeing quite a lot of ads on Facebook for the fact that you could sit on a beach basically and drink margaritas and listen to the sound of your laptop pinging as Amazon did all the work, and you just sat there and coined it in. And I thought, well, that's interesting, because my products have always been good sellers, and they have been bestsellers since 2010 on Amazon. But surely I must be able to do more to sort of grow the business, and it'll be more cost effective for me to be selling direct to consumer than to a distributor who's then selling to a retailer. So I then spent the next, 3-4 years doing everything I could to sort of improve things. And so in 2016, I was a six-figure, sort of mid to low level six-figure seller. And in 2019, I was very lucky, and I managed to grow the business through, well, I say lucky, actually, it was a lot of hard graft, a lot of hard work, and a lot of white hairs. And I hit 7 figures last year, which was an amazing achievement. But what I will have to point out, unfortunately, is that there is no magic answer. And it does feel a bit like you're Sisyphus pushing a rock up a hill a lot of the time, because it's very, very hard work. So one of the things I think that I have learned the most over the last few years is the importance of a quality of a listing. Now, I'm probably in some ways, I do a sort of hybrid of what probably a lot of teachers say on how to do a listing. So I think you need to have a good control of English, first of all. You need to also truly understand your customer and what your product can do for your customer. Now, one of the things that I think sometimes gets forgotten about actually controlling your own listing is that brand registry is the one thing that actually gives you way more control than anything else. I mean, it's, as we all know, dealing with Amazon can be very stressful. But at the same time, having brand registry really does help when you need to make a change, etc., to your listing. And I've had to do that on many, many occasions. Now, people often say, which way should you sell on Amazon? Now, I've got experience of selling on Vendor Central. I've been doing FBA since April 2016 myself. And actually, in the last 6 weeks, I've actually become rather nifty at Fulfilled by Merchant as well. So it's a mishmash. And I would actually say to anybody who's thinking of selling on Amazon, or who is, God's sake, don't do Vendor Central, because that actually really messes up your control over your listings. And I speak from personal experience. So moving on, what is it that you are selling on Amazon? Well, the one thing I think you're probably, when I usually ask people this sort of thing, they say, I'm selling a dustbin, I'm selling a mouse pad, I'm selling, or they'll say things like, I'm selling the confidence of having beautiful, lush skin. Or I'm selling a product that helps you sleep so much better, etc. And actually, what we're all selling on Amazon is fundamentally a keyword. And that's it in a nutshell. So it's very interesting coming from a brand perspective, because my background is brand building. And actually on Amazon, although brand is absolutely critical in some ways, it's not actually what the shoppers are looking for. So what I always say is you have got to think like a shopper, not a seller. Stop thinking about what you're selling and start thinking like someone who would be looking for a product that does what your product does. And that is very importantly a what, not a who. And I've learned this from personal experience. So I was at a course about 3 years ago, and one of the suggestions they made was actually taking the brand name away from the front of the title of the listing. Now, I've spent a lot of time, money, effort, etc., building a brand around SnoozeShade, and it is actually now a keyword in its own right. But the problem is that not everyone is looking for a SnoozeShade. They're looking for a universal crown sunshade, or they're looking for a buggy sun cover, or whatever it might be. And so interestingly, what I've done on some of my listings is and I haven't done it with all of them, because I've got a variety of products, and so I like to play with things. I have actually taken the brand name out from the front and put it at the back. And it's really interesting to see how sales, particularly in countries where the products were, as a brand, was less well known, have actually increased quite considerably because of that. One of the other things that I think we often forget about is the fact that 78% of, and I'm going to come back to this in a minute actually, but 78% of customers are looking at listings on a mobile. So I'm going to go into that in a minute, not straight away, but I am going to go into it because mobile is absolutely critical in terms of thinking about, again, how is your shopper perceiving your listing, not how you're presenting it. One of the things also that I will talk about a little bit is in terms of keywords, is the fact that in my listings, I don't always use the most popular keywords, because actually, when you think about it, everyone's going to go for mouse mat. Everyone's going to go for glass jug. But actually, for example, I had somebody that I helped out on their listing, and they had a sequin blanket. And I went to look at the listing, and it was actually a sequin blanket with a unicorn on it. Now, if you actually search for sequin blanket on Amazon.com, you will get lots of those mermaid sequin blankets. And so by just sort of putting in that, there's a lot less searches for a sequin unicorn blanket, but you've got to think about from the shopper's perspective that you're ticking their boxes way more by putting a sequin blanket unicorn, and they then found the product, versus putting sequin blankets. So I often encourage people to do a little mishmash in the listing, which includes some high level words, but actually go for some of that low hanging fruit, because when you add up the amount of searches together on more of those words, you'll get the same amount of hits, but you're actually getting a better quality pre-qualified shopper. I'm afraid I did have to leave one GIF in this presentation, and it had to be of cats because I'm a huge cat fan. And basically, yes, you will need some software. So what I tend to do is I tend to use Merchant Words, and I use Helium 10. I've not got affiliate activities with either of them. They just tend to be the ones that I like and I find easy to use. And that is really where you kind of do your digging around for keywords. Now, the other thing as well is that pictures, for me, are one of the most important parts of your Amazon listing in many ways, because actually the phrase is a picture speaks 1,000 words and can sell 1,000 products. But actually, in many ways, it's actually words on a picture, can sell 1,000 products. And I'll go into that in a little bit more detail as well. But one of the things that people get wrong the most when they're doing their listing is they quite often confuse the difference between a feature and a benefit. And that's what we were talking about before when we were saying about the fact that your skincare, if you've got a skincare product, for example, it gives you wrinkle-free skin, that's a benefit. But what something is, it's a it's a skin cream with UV protection. That's very factual. And so what you need to do is make sure that you have enough features, thinking about what type of product you have, whether it's a very practical, functional product and what something is. So for example, I was looking for a cushion cover the other day, and I needed one that was, I think it was 60 centimeters by 60 centimeters. And actually it was quite annoying having to look at thousands and thousands of listings for cushion covers. And then when I went into the listing, the size came further down the line. And so little things like that, if it's a very functional, practical product, think about what your shopper is looking for. And then what something does, obviously, has got much more of a kind of emotional connection. And again, that's the difference really between a product and a brand. So the product on the left is a can of cola, and it's an unbranded one. And then the brand on the right is Coca-Cola. Now, we all have emotional associations with brands, not generally with products. So for example, the other day I was chatting to somebody and they were talking about the kind of cars that their families like to drive. And they had an uncle who was very anti-BMW and a dad who was very pro-Mercedes. Now, what's interesting there is that they're talking about the brand with an emotional element to it of love or hate, but the actual product, so for example, whether or not it's a CLS Mercedes or an SLK Mercedes or a 318 BMW, is kind of redundant. So the value of having a real brand is actually not just the name of your business or the names of your products, but it's something that creates an emotional connection for your customers. And that's something that your listing can actually help you do. So one of the things that often people say, and I think there was actually a comment prior to this presentation yesterday, and somebody had looked at my listings and sort of said, your images aren't very pretty. You know, you've got a very functional look. Well, my products are very functional, and they're not really very pretty at all. In fact, I quite often say they're all about function over fashion. And pretty is nice, don't get me wrong. And I have made my products prettier by, I actually had a proper photo shoot done by a fashion photographer, funnily enough, which have created me with some lovely lifestyle shots. But fundamentally, parents just want to know whether it fits on their pram and how to attach it. So for me, pretty is nice, and I think you should always have an element of pretty, but sold is better. And particularly when this is relevant is actually thinking mobile, because as I said, 78% of customers are actually looking via the app. Now, I've done a couple of slides, which I'm going to flick through between the two, because this is what a customer, I actually chose an Alexa, an Echo Dot from Amazon as an example. And there are actually 4 more pages than this until you get to the bullet points. So what's the first thing you're seeing on this screen? It's the image. Now, this is what every customer sees who is using the app. And then this is what you see, which is all your beautiful bullet points, and scroll down not very far to see all the detail about the product. So I'm a very large fan, and I might, I'll probably open up some of my listings at the end as well as critiquing, just to show you what I mean. But I'm a very big fan of actually making the images actually talk to the customer and giving them the information, because obviously most people will know what an Echo Dot is, but if your product is something that is something maybe a little less well understood, or actually if you've got a lot of competition, working out what your shoppers are looking for and then telling them about it on the images, for me, is a very sort of comprehensive way of dealing with it. So as you can see, you get a lot more sort of space to talk about your products when you're on the desktop format. Now, one of the other things that I think is really important and is not done enough on Amazon is telling your story. Now, I obviously have quite a strong story, which is all about the fact that I was a mum and I needed a product, and therefore I created it. But actually, in my opinion, any successful business, and I don't care whether it's an Amazon business or a car repair business or whatever, any business that you're involved with, you should have some passion for it, and there should be a reason why you're selling the products that you're selling. So for example, if it's kitchen spatulas and it's the fact that you love being in the kitchen, and you looking for something and you couldn't find it and blah blah blah. So if you can create a story, Amazon will actually give you the opportunity to talk about that in either 𝗍𝐵𝐶 or your product description, etc. And also you can mention it in your images, etc. But you know what it does is Amazon is a very impersonal place to be. There are not many personalities on Amazon, and so anything you can do to give your product and your brand a personality are going to help. So these are the 1, 2, 3. These are the it's like a recipe for your listing. So obviously you've got your title, and then you've got your bullet points, and then you've got your product description. So when it comes to your title, I think a lot of people, as I said, I mean, I've actually worked with quite a few people who get quite obsessed with their brand being in the title, and they actually also don't necessarily think about how the shopper is looking for them. So for example, there was a friend of mine who was selling it's kind of like a baby food maker that pulverizes vegetables. And in the US, they call it something different from what they call it in the UK. And so she was calling it what she called it in the UK, and yet in the US, they called it something completely different. And she also had her brand name very, very prominently, as if like that was a big thing. And I was like, no one knows who you are. So actually, you know, don't worry about the fact your brand is in there. Talk about what the product does. And she immediately saw an increase in sales. Then you've got your bullet points. Now, your bullet points are your opportunity to really kind of sell your benefits and your features. And that's why it's really important to make sure that you kind of differentiate between the two. And obviously the product description, again, you've got a huge opportunity there to, I suggest often mentioning the fact that there's a personal element in some way in the bullet points, but then in your product description to actually beef that up a little bit and make it a little bit more interactive. Funnily enough, I've only just literally done some 𝗍𝐵𝐶 on my products. I just haven't had time over the last few years to do 𝗍𝐵𝐶. And that's actually been a really good way of making sure that the story has kind of come out a bit more. And again, going back to what I was saying about my friend who was using the wrong language, is that I always advise as well that it's a good idea to test before you go big. All countries are not the same, and even if we all supposedly speak English, actually my experience is that Americans, Canadians, Australians, and the Brits, we all speak a very different language. And what's also interesting is that the products, my best sellers in the US are my worst sellers in the UK, for example. So it's always a good idea to test the water a little bit. And one of the ways as well that people often forget, like I know it's not necessarily your listing per se, but actually how you treat your customers really is how you're going to build that engagement, that emotional involvement that puts you above the people who really don't care what they're doing. They're just selling products. And Amazon customers can certainly be annoying as hell. And I mean, I have used a lot of expletives over the years. But they can also be quite sweet and lovely at the same time if you treat them with a bit of respect. And so what I found is that actually, I know a lot of places teach you, for example, to send very long messages after you've sold the product, as it, you know, and selling about the fact that actually telling the story of like how you're a small family run business. Interestingly enough, a friend of mine recently told me that she had an argument with her marketing team. She's got a marketing team. I don't have one as such. She was arguing with them because she wanted to send out a very short message. And they thought, oh, no, you've got to go with the old school, got to go with the ability to communicate with your customer. And actually, she wanted to send a message, just says, hi there, is everything okay? And interestingly enough, I did that with my refunds. So when I get refunds, I quite often find I don't get very many refunds at all. But when I do, I send a very short message, and it sounds as if I've literally just typed it myself and sent it out, and I get a lot of responses to it. So the other day, and in fact, this is only like 2 weeks ago, I decided I was going to change my message instead of doing the I'm a small family business, blah, 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 or I invented the product, etc., and reach out and la, 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 and all the long message. I literally just go, hi there, is everything okay with your SnoozeShade? I've had more customer replies than I've probably had in the last few years, just because of the fact they feel like you're actually talking to them rather than probably talking at them. So that was quite a good little tip that I sort of picked up. The other thing to do with listings as well is that one price doesn't necessarily work worldwide. And sometimes you can charge a lot more in one place and a lot less in another. And that's something really, the great thing about Amazon, and the difference between when I started and I was moving into kind of the big box retailers, you know, I had to set an RRP, whereas on Amazon, actually, you can fiddle around with prices, and I have done on various occasions. But that's always, you know, always going to be the case. And the other thing is that when we're in this very competitive environment, there is always going to be someone who charges less than you. So actually your listing is an opportunity for you to kind of engage with your customer on a slightly more emotional level, so that they actually feel like they care whether or not they're buying from you. And I think this is one of the things that, you know, a lot of Amazon listings lack, is that they lack any kind of emotional vibe, basically. And you have to remember that people buy from people. And the more you can make your brand and your listings, etc., about being a person who is selling a product because they really like it and they really are enthusiastic about it, I think that is only for the good. And pretty much sort of my last slide is about the tweaking. One of the things that I do is I tweak things constantly. I never really sit still on a listing. Like only this week, I've changed some of the 𝗍𝐸C, I've changed some of my images, I've changed some of my copy, I've changed this. Because the thing is also with Amazon is that things change on an almost minute by minute basis. And so, you know, writing your listing is one thing, but then monitoring it is something we should all be doing more of, and going back and tweaking it and checking that, you know, I've been in business now 10 years. And when I started, my product was the first basically blackout blind stroke sleep shade for buggies in the world. And now sleep shade is a keyword. So, you know, you only have to actually look at how we as people search for things. The more things become popular, therefore these keywords start moving into the vernacular. And so therefore they'll become a keyword. So it is really important to kind of stay on top of that. And, you know, my sort of final piece of advice really is just keep tweaking, because, you know, putting that effort in and that energy in to keeping your listing fresh, I think it can only be a good thing. So thank you very much indeed for listening to me rambling on. I hope it was of interest. And if you want to find me, then I'm on Facebook, and that's it really. So I'm going to go back to 𝗱𝐸 initially, and then I think we're going to look at some listings.
Yeah, hopefully that was interesting. I found it fascinating. I don't know about you, but whenever I talk to anybody else but myself, obviously, about listings, I always find out, and I'm a bit of a geek around listings myself, so I really care about how they're created. And you know, with my VA, we create a keyword database, and then I make sure that we use proper copywriting together with lots of keywords, etc. And like I said, a geek. But I always learn something new whenever I speak to somebody else about it. And what was really interesting actually is your approach and your mindset to how you do it. So I think this next bit will be very good. So we're going to take one listing from someone who's had to go, unfortunately, but he's really interested to see what we all have to say. And that was the one that I sent you earlier, Cara. So yes, would you be able to bring that up on your screen? And I think what would be useful for the audience is for us to just go through it. And Christian and I can contribute to this bit as well.
I'm just going to disable screen share. I've just got to find it, because remember how my screen clapped? Yeah. It took the link. So I'm just going to go back in and get it out. Well, just one moment.
I might be able to.
That's right. I'm in your message, so I can grab it.
All right. Okay. Super. But should we just deal with one or two? There were some questions about visuals, which I think I've dealt with, but there's one here from Peter. On the tweaking, how do you monitor your changes? Do you keep a log and then also look at sophisticated tracking mechanisms?
No. I basically watch sales. You know, I mean, literally, I'm afraid I'm that basic, which is that I just look at my sales. And usually when I do a tweak, and it's not a right tweet, then sales kind of a bit. But when it's the right tweet, then they go up. And I'm afraid, you know, there is an art to this sort of thing, and it's not actually a technical skill. That's half the problem. I think it's one of the reasons why people find marketing as a whole a challenging area, because it kind of has to be. It's not something that everybody can do. And it's one of these things where, you know, it's about, I suppose, it's a bit suck it and see, really. You know, you don't always necessarily know the answers to everything, but you can sort of make some educated guesses. And I think that's really like one of the most sort of fun bits in a way, is sort of playing and seeing what happens. But also the other thing is, it's not even necessarily the fact that, it's the fact that, as I said, like keywords can change. So if you did your listing like 2-3 years ago and you haven't looked at it for 2 or 3 years, then, or even 6 months, or even 3 months, actually, you know, this is an opportunity to go and actually have a refresher, because, you know, it is actually one of those things you probably should be looking at a bit more regularly. And I think people quite often, they do their listing and then that's it. They sort of leave it. And I don't actually think people do tweet their listings as much as they should.
Okay, good. And then we've got another quick question, which I'm going to use as something to fill the pregnant pause whilst you bring up that other listing.
Oh, yes, okay. I wanted to share my screen. This is
so you don't use any A/B testing tools or anything like that?
No, I mean, every now and then I think I should probably, but to be honest, you can. My opinion is you can actually tell a lot from. Here we go. Right, I'm just choosing the thingy. You can tell a lot from sales, really. I mean, when I changed my listing to be like a universal this, that, and the other, rather than starting with SnoozeShade, that product started selling way more. And I think that's because some people are looking for SnoozeShade and some people are looking for a Crown Sunshade. So it kind of served its purpose, if you see what I mean. And I quite often do that with variations. I'll give a variation and different names. I give them different titles, because it's all about making sure people, well, I call it sort of marketing tentacles. So, you know, I'm putting tentacles out there. So the people who are looking for my brand can find it. The people who are looking for a universal Crown Sunshade can find it. The people who are looking maybe for a stroller sunshade can find it. And by mixing it all up, particularly within a variation, that can be quite nifty. Does that make sense? Can you see the listing on the screen now?
Yeah. Can, yeah. Okay,
so first of all, I'm actually surprised. I'm trying to think. Presumably, this is the main image. And I'm quite surprised that Amazon hasn't suspended the listing, because of the fact it's got copy on it, and they really don't like that. And in fact, I've just a whole group of people I know have just had their listings suspended. In fact, like 2 days ago, and I got one of mine suspended last night, and that's been up for about 4 or 5 years. And I had awards logos on my main image. So, you know, what I'll say is, if you can get away with it, great. But also, I would also say, just be aware of the fact that could get suspended.
Yeah, what I would say on that quickly, Cara, is if you're going to do that, have an image without the markup in your back pocket.
Yeah, ready to go.
So that if you get knocked offline, you can immediately change it and request being put back online.
Absolutely. So always have a plain backup. Now, the other thing I would say about this is that people, human beings, don't have much of an attention span. And so I personally think that you really shouldn't have more than 3 things on an image, 3 pieces of information. So here you've got the strength of it, whatever. You've got 500 plus charge cycles, will not damage the phone, 3 outputs, fail-safe protection. Now, I personally, if this was an image on mine, I would only have 3 of those items on there, because here you've got 2. I mean, I think it's more the wording on this. It's sort of, I think I'd make it just a little bit more punchy, because the fact that, you know, Samsung cells are the most stable cells in the world, and Ensure, you know, just little tweaks to this. Smart IQ detects your device and delivers the fastest charge. I would just actually make that like one sentence rather than having it two. I know it's only a little thing. I like small but mighty. I think that's really nice. But I'd actually probably separate that out. So I'd have small but mighty like here, like in the middle, and then I'd have maybe super portable down here. That's just one thing. Huge capacity. That's okay, I think. Again, I think, you know, I'd probably put this bit is probably a bit more of the sort of, you know, won't damage your phone, 3 outputs, etc. Do people really, I don't know whether people really, do you need to put power output 1, 2, 3, or do you just put 3 outputs? I don't know. I mean, you know, I have to be honest, I do love my USB chargers. I'm not sure that would really kind of excite me, if you know what I mean. And then again, using genuine Samsung battery cells, I'd probably say you've already made that point. So I'd probably maybe utilize some of these points here, because you have, in theory, you've got up to, I think it's 9 images, although not all of them get used. The other thing as well, which is a little sneaky trick, which you can do on variations, is when you have a variation listing, you get these little images here, which are called swatches. Now, you're not allowed to put awards logos or anything else on your main image, in theory. As I said, for years, I've had awards logos all over mine, and I'm only now, I think I've finally got down to like the last one that got suspended. But actually, you can put them on this, which actually customers can see. Like, so if you have won awards or you've got something, you know, that looks a bit funky, then that can be worth doing as well. And then this picture really, you know, to be honest, I mean, I'd probably even put, I mean, you haven't got an iPad in here. So I'd probably, personally, I'd sort of move those around and I'd make them more practical looking. So this is just redundant. It's not saying anything to me. So I might actually put like an iPad, how many charges. And if that's not relevant, then, you know, I think that's trying to show the fact that you can charge 3 items. Okay, so actually put on it charges 3 items simultaneously. You know, actually put the point that you're trying to get across from the image on there, because remember, we're looking at this on a desktop, not a mobile, and all you're going to see on the mobile is this, and this. That's all you're going to see. And in fact, I think on mobiles, they restrict it to 5 images. I think it's the first 5. So, you know, that would be one of my things.
Whilst you're on images, Cara, you stay at the top. One thing I like to do with images when you have variations is you see here that when you switch between the white and the red, he's got his images in the same order. So when someone changes from white to red, it just changes the color. If you put your images in a different order, it makes the page pop a bit more when you change between when you just hover over the different colors. So instead of changing the color, it will show different information. So if your second image on the red is the same as the third image on the white, for example, when they switch between them, they'll see 2 different sets of features just as they hover over the different variations, if that makes sense. So don't always put your images in the same order. I'd like to mix the order up a bit, and where possible, change them. So if I've got 10 things to say 5 things on the red one and 5 things on the white one, and that way you've got more space to talk about the benefits or the features, if you want to, on each image, and then between the 2 variations, you can get the full message across.
I mean, personally, for me, I'd probably remove that "will not damage the phone" thing, because that's a negative versus a positive. That's a negative versus a benefit. So it's like, we won't damage your phone. It's actually better to sort of say, you know, use this super safe technology, you know, something along those lines. And this is the other thing, and this is what also I think people forget sometimes in listings, is that I've got no idea what a Samsung cell is. So actually, the fact that your power bank uses it means really not very much to me. So you kind of have to I always say, treat people reading your listings like they're morons or a 3-year-old, whichever, because you need to spell everything out like really simply. So why is a Samsung cell good? And so, you know, it's super safe Samsung cells maybe, and then put, you know, Samsung battery cells. Because you have to kind of educate the shopper so that they go, oh, right, okay, that's why I need Samsung cells in there, for example. Here you've got like 13 mAh. I think that would be something people would be searching for. I don't know. I've used emojis and things on my listings sometimes when I've got away with them, and I quite like emojis, but I'm not a big fan of stars, but that's just me. 3 USB charging points. I would have thought probably that might be a bigger, might be a bullet point by itself, because in a way I'd probably mix this sort of safety element and the Samsung cells. Those seem to be related. As I said, I'm not an expert on this, but I would imagine those two elements are related. So, you know, the fact that it charges 3 things simultaneously, I think personally, you know, would be something I'd pull out a bit more. LED flashlight. Okay. I mean, that's a bonus. Is that really why you buy a charger? I'm not sure. But that's a sort of nice extra. I'm not sure whether that would be a reason why someone would buy it, if I'm honest. If you're looking for an LED flashlight, is that a waste of a bullet point? And maybe that's better in the product description. Because I think someone who's actually looking for an LED flashlight would actually look for a flashlight. That's the sort of nice extra benefit.
With the picture you're showing at the moment, it does show the light, but it's not called out in the text. So if you want, to really talk about it, you can bring it out.
In fact, actually, I didn't even notice.
No, me neither.
From those, yeah, from these images. I mean, it does mention it here, LED light. Actually, it does. Maybe there it'd be better to sort of show it shining out, because I actually totally missed that. Yeah,
when it says LED light, I thought it just meant an LED indicator light. So,
yeah, I did as well. Like, as in, like when it's charged, it shows up blue or whatever. Also, if I'm really honest, I don't know. I mean, Christian, you're more than welcome to disagree with me, but I don't really massively agree with all this 100% satisfaction guaranteed. I don't really think a shopper really cares actually, because we can all say that. But I think what really counts is your actual reviews, and the fact that if you have a problem with a product, I always respond to every single review that is ever posted on any of my products, and I thank people for doing positive ones, and I make sure that I reply and give my email address for them to contact us on all the negative ones. So I don't know if for me that is a bit of a waste of a bullet point, if I'm honest.
I think it depends for me, it depends a bit on the category. If it's something which people have often been burnt by, or has across the category, across the niche, has a problem with quality, then you can help to assuage people's fear and get them over the line and get them to actually buy from you. But I don't think the 30-day return is not the big thing. I think the 24-month warranty is a more important part of that. And I like the way you snuck in an email address into your listing.
Yes, that's good. But you see, you can do that in your reviews as well. So you can put your review. I mean, I do that with all my reviews. I've just realized I picked the wrong listing. Hold on, I'm gonna have to go back in again. Yeah, you know, you can put your email address, which is actually, you know, totally within terms of service, etc., to say, look, you know, please contact me immediately on this email address. And I do think, I mean, I know as a cut, because the thing is also, I think you have to remember, how do you shop? Like, I think sometimes as sellers, we forget how we shop. So I know I am really obsessed by reviews. And I look through and I look at the negative reviews first. And I often notice whether or not a seller has actually replied to it, or whether they've just ignored them. Because if somebody has just ignored them, then are they really paying attention? Whereas, you know, quite often I see reviews and it's like, actually the seller got in touch with me and they sorted out the problem. And I'm like, okay, you know, that's a good indicator that they're there and doing well. And then let's have a scroll down. Right, so there's no EBC on this product. So I don't know whether that's because, or A+ or whatever you want to call it. I never know what they're calling it. I don't know whether you've got brand registry or not. But EBC is a nice opportunity if you can take it, because when you're on a mobile, you have to, so literally all you see is the images. You'll see the title, but it takes like literally this long of scrolling before you get down to the bullet points and the product features. So actually the EBC comes in really quickly, and that's got images and various other bits. In fact, what I might do, shall I show one of mine just as an example?
Sure.
Is that okay?
Actually, let me just add something. There's a really cool website that's not very well known called ready.mobi, as in I'm ready.
Put it in the chat window.
Yeah, and if you go into ready.mobi and put in the link to your Amazon listing, you can see it on mobile. and you can see how it'll scroll on mobile and how it comes across. So that's really useful for when you're looking at your listings and trying to understand the difference between PC versus mobile.
Okay, so I'm just swapping listings because I know. Right, so for example, now you can all see my shopping habits for the last month. Here we go. So
I see. Yeah, we'll see your shopping habits. We can't see them yet, but we're very, very much sitting here waiting.
And now say, you should buy one of these. I don't know, my...
Peter, in response to that, I don't know if it's okay to put a customer support email listing. I'm not sure it's okay, but it will get through, and so it will be on the page. But
yes,
yeah, it's not necessarily something that Amazon likes you to do.
Yeah,
well, they don't like.
I would agree. You're taking a risk, but try it and see what happens.
Well, I've done it on nearly every single listing I've got worldwide. Because for me as well, it's about getting the customer's problem sorted as quickly as possible. And I mean, I've been selling on Amazon going back to 2010, and you know, I've never had a review answer queried when I've put in, please get in touch with us straight away.
No, on a review, but he's put it here in a bullet point.
Oh, I know, and I don't. He's very lucky to have got away with that. Yeah. I mean, that's a lucky thing. So funnily enough, actually, I changed my images like the other day. This is what I mean about tweaking. So for example, this is the main image on one product.
We can't, and then we can't
You've
see
not
your
shared
screen.
your screen.
Oh, you can't see. Oh, Gordon Bennett.
I think you shared a particular tab in the browser.
So. Oh, did I? Oh, okay, right. Here we go. Hold on. Actions. Right, I'm going to disable it and then enable it again. I'm just going to let.
While you're doing that, I'll just answer Will's point. He's put in the chat. He's talking about the fact he's been doing some keyword research, and he's done so much research and tried to put so many keywords in the listing, it now looks like it's written by a robot, and it's kind of destroyed the beautiful story he was telling before. With that, I mean, my personal take on that is that your listing is trying to do two things. You're trying to get people to come to your listing, which is keywords and visibility, and then when they're there, you want them to actually engage with your page and to make the purchase. And so, which side of that where you go on that scale of keywords to brand story depends a bit on how popular your listing is and how much traffic you're getting to your listing. If you are not getting anybody to your listing, then you need to work harder on getting the keywords in there and getting the traffic to go there. But if they get there and think it's written by a robot and don't buy anything, then there's no point. So once you have traffic, you need to have more converting listings. And if you have low traffic and you want to try and get those keywords in to try and get that traffic stimulated, then that's fine. But remember that people buy stuff because they relate to your listing. So you can't just go full robot. You need to have a listing that still talks to people and sells to actual people, not to robots.
And one of the things I do is I just make a list of my keywords, and then I mean, I've got a variety of different products, a lot of which are similar. But what I would do, even if I only had one, is I would probably have that list of keywords, and then I would test like some of them in the title, some in the bullet points, some in the product description, but don't go mental. I mean, as you say, it's got to make sense. You've got to sound like it's being sold by a human, not a robot. And then also the whole point of tweaking is that you can go back in again and try another keyword and replace it, wait a few weeks, a month or whatever, see whether that keyword's working better for you. You know, I've quite often, and also using things like helium and merchant words and all the rest of it, you can sort of mishmash around with like how much traffic is going to be coming because of those particular words. And then just try and do it, you know, I suppose logically is part of that, you know, as in test it, leave it for a while, see, and then if it's really like quite sluggish, try some new words. But I think it's really important, you know, I mean, like, as you'll see here, like one of the questions I get asked the most is, does it fit? That is the number one question about my products. Will it fit their buggy? Will it, you know, so that's in there. The fact, and then it's helping baby sleep. It protects baby from the sun. It's safe, which is another issue, and it's safe. Now, safety is a huge concern for my products. And then what I do, which I've actually just been fiddling with this the other day, so the colors are a bit wonky. But you see, again, the other thing I would say personally as well is that doing something is better than doing nothing. So try it, see, and it doesn't matter. I mean, I've changed my images like 100 times. And sometimes they look okay, and then I look in them a few weeks later, or a month, 2 or 3 months later, or 6 months later. I'm like, oh God, I really hate the look of that, and I go and change it again. Also, one of the things you're probably not supposed to do, which I do, is I have put in some social media pictures of people using the products. I try and spell out the benefits it visually with images. So, you know, it's scientific. It's got a fan, air moving through it, laboratory with a thingy. You know, stops cats and insects. So I've got cats and insects. Again, more sort of social media things, and then I've got a few videos, etc. And then more recently, I did some 𝗍𝐵𝐶, and this is, I think, the first version. Yeah. And so I put in the story, which obviously I have got more of a story than a lot of people, but still, I'm also about getting the product for you. You know, it's not about me selling, it's what works for you, what it does, who it's for, because I also, the other question I get is, you know, which product should I get? And it's all about age, basically. I also like to reiterate the fact it's run by mums. This is me and my daughter. This is a little bit more of the story about why I invented it. Use, again, reiterating like how you can use it in different ways. And then I have a what makes my brand special, and you know, some of the awards and various other things. And then actually I have noticed an increase in sales since I've started using this comparison thing. So if you've got other products that can, you know, are in the range, even if they're not the same, like this is a car seat canopy, this is one for older children, this is one for travel cots. I found actually that has been quite beneficial. But I've just tried to make it look, you know, pretty-ish, but it's also very functional. It's very like reassuring. Parents know that they can, you know, there's most of the questions that I get asked on a daily basis are answered in here, and I still get asked more questions again. So do you want me to go and have a look at the other one as well, the other listing?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so this is one of them.
One question actually before you do that. There's a question from 𝗍𝐺. This relates to your product because you've got a lot of English text on your images.
Yes.
His concern was that it may put customers off in other European marketplaces because the same images show internationally.
Yeah, it might do, but I would say for me personally, my products don't sell that well in Europe. I mean, they do okay, but not brilliantly, because culturally, and again, this is going back to testing markets. I've been selling for 10 years, and I know that in Europe, my products, they don't get them because they're not bothered about sun protection for their babies, and they're not that bothered about sleep either. They tend to keep children up a lot later. So actually, that doesn't really bother me if I'm honest. Having said that, the other day I was just looking at looking at whether I can do 𝗍𝐵𝐶 on a .de listing or not as a separate sort of area. But, you know, yes, I mean, the other thing is also most people do speak English, and it depends on where your biggest market is, really. You know, you've got to kind of choose if you're a huge seller in Germany and you don't sell very much in the UK. I mean, I've seen listings in the UK with German all over them. It hasn't put me off necessarily, but, you know, I think it just depends, really.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, 𝗍𝐺, you're right. You can only have one image across the European marketplaces at the moment, as far as I know. But if your message is very important and you're selling a lot in England and Germany, then you can consider putting the text in both languages on the
in both languages. Yeah.
But you know, just make a call for what will work for you. And my personal view is similar to Cara's, that people can often at least understand English. So if the text is helping to explain what the image is about, then it's not really going to hurt in other countries.
I mean, I think actually personally, I know this sounds awful, but I do think it probably hurts your English listing more to have German on it than it does the other way around. Because like English, we are dreadful at having other languages, whereas everyone else in the world is so brilliant at speaking English. But as I think your point of actually putting two versions on there, you know, to actually have German and English, particularly if you've got short, sharp messages.
Well, short and sharp in English, but very long in German.
Well, yeah, there always are, aren't they? I know. I remember in my German lesson, I wasn't very good at German, but I do remember laughing because bus stop is Straßenbahnhaltestelle, which is like one of the longest words in the world for a very short word in English. So this is actually somebody I know they're listing, and they wanted me to have a look at it for them. And obviously, this is completely new to me. I haven't actually been looking at it particularly, but obviously they're missing a huge amount of opportunity here. And this is what I mean sometimes about brands when they go on Amazon, is that they get very obsessed with how they see their own brand. So the washable squashable means nothing when it's on Amazon. Really what this product is, it's a travel high chair, it's a portable high chair, it's a chair harness high chair, it's a fabric, it's not, but washable and squashable means nothing.
Just to reiterate that, Cara, for others who aren't as used to this idea that you're selling keywords, what that means is that people on Amazon, customers, are not really searching for washable high chair or squashable high chair so much, or washable squashable high chair. They're probably searching for travel high chair or portable high chair, etc. So you've got to make sure that you're allowing your product to be found by those customers who are searching for those keywords. And you have to understand, by using the tools like Helium 10 and others, what the keywords are that people are actually looking for, and then make sure you put those into your titles, into your messaging, and into your listing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's what I said in the presentation. It's what people are looking for, not kind of who. And when you sort of get cute little phrases like washable, squashable, like that's great when maybe it's on a Facebook ad or something, but when someone's on Amazon looking for something, they won't be looking for a washable, squashable high chair. They will be looking for a high chair of some sort. So it's just sort of going back into the mindset of the customer. So, I mean, I think the main image is quite sweet. It's a cute looking baby. It kind of shows the product. That's fine. This is pretty redundant. I do know that obviously what they're trying to indicate here is how small it is, because that's an iPhone, and so I would actually personally, if it was me, I'd have something that says, really lightweight, perfect for travel, not much bigger than an iPhone, something along those lines, spell it out. Now, and this image is showing obviously how many different types of chairs it attaches to, and then trying to convey like the instructions. And I think that's too much information in one picture.
Yeah, I mean, for me, show the pictures of some of those chairs and just put the headline "fits any chair," and maybe skip the whole bottom part.
Well, I mean, or you could even split it in two if you really wanted to. I think if you wanted to, like say, I think I'd probably have that as one image, because then people kind of are like, oh yeah, okay, it's going to fit like any kind of chair that they're going to come across when they're in a restaurant.
Exactly. So for me, take those 8, cut them into half, so you have 4 and 4, make it bigger. And then you put a headline above it to to spell out the point of the picture, and the real benefit is fits any chair. And maybe in the bottom, attaches in seconds or minutes or whatever it is.
Yes, exactly. And then here, obviously, they put in some awards that they've won, which is great. But again, you want to put, I put, as you saw, I think in mine, I think if I show, I've got, no, actually, it never shows up on this one. But I usually have like award or on my 𝗱𝐵𝐶. You're only allowed to put ones you've won in the last few years. But normally I've got one which has got like a award-winning brand, trusted by parents, that sort of thing. And ideally also, if I was advising them, I'd say get some newer awards because they're quite old. And I know it's a long-standing brand, so that's actually a good thing. So, but just enter a few more awards.
One way to deal with the age of the awards is if you put a picture of the image of the product again and make the awards smaller, just it shows that there are lots of rewards. People aren't going to read them in detail, but you're then associating in the people's mind the picture of their product, and the fact it has lots of rewards. And so here there are awards, but it's slightly removed psychologically from the product itself. So if you put
I'd possibly also put the 3 different variants. They've got 3 different colorways. And I may possibly put all 3 products on there, so available in different colors, etc. So that people can sort of see that sort of thing. I mean, personally, I'd also have a picture of a baby eating at a table with a parent, so that you can see it in situ on a different type of chair. Lifestyle, something about making holidays easier, traveling with a baby easier, etc. And obviously, these bullet points are really, really short. Don't really convey either massively like the benefits or the features. There's quite a lot of really good work you could do with this listing, which is I always love it actually when I see a product that's got loads of opportunity. It's quite exciting. And then the product description, if we have a look, is minimal. Again, and then they have done a bit. All right, okay, so here we've done a bit more with the 𝗱𝐵𝐶. So see, I might possibly have used sort of maybe one of those pictures in the lifestyle shot, you know, something
they're,
like
they're
that.
100 times better than the ones at the top of the page.
They are, yeah. And you see, look, you know, available in various designs. You see, I'd probably like put that as an image.
Even those lifestyle images, just those should be at the top of the page. I mean, you're just
yeah,
missing such a trick.
I'm just going to jump in here. This looks like a very typical vendor listing.
Yeah.
So this looks to me like a listing, rather than somebody who's been through kind of the FBA school of learning, as it were, and understands how to truly work with the Amazon algorithm.
Yeah.
So,
has slightly fewer typos and misspellings than the vendor ones.
Well, I mean, but you see, what's really interesting as well is, I mean, I work with a lot of people. You know, I'm kind of like the opposite, which is I don't really work with a lot of people who have just got brands that they've got through developing them through a private label, etc. Most of the people I know in my industry are people like me, and you know, and they're just so passionate about what they're doing, but they don't understand how Amazon works. And as you say, you know, they listen to, and I hear so many times like, oh, I've just done one of the Amazon courses on advertising. I'm like, oh my God, don't listen to them. Oh, I've just done a course on how to do my 𝗍𝐵𝐶. You didn't look at the information from Amazon, did you?
Send them to us, Cara. Send them to us.
I know, exactly. So anyway, so you know, so I think, you know, I think the good thing is, which I always like, is there's lots of opportunities in this listing to make it better and to get loads more keywords in, get a lot more personality. Because I actually know the person who invented this, and I know the business was now being run by somebody else, and it was invented by Mum, who actually made the first version out of her inside the lining of her wedding dress. You know, so there are always stories, you know, that you can sort of bring out that make it a little bit more, you know, I think anything that's been, as I say, created by somebody who's got a passion for what they do can kind of, you know, not be a bad thing. And that passion doesn't have to be that you invented it. It just has to be maybe you brought a selection of products together that you care about. Shall I stop sharing now?
That's
yeah,
fine.
let's go deal with a few more questions, maybe. What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay,
My screen,
because we've been going an hour and 11 minutes, and we said this would be a quickie, this one. So if we look at one of the questions, can you hear me, you guys? Okay. All right, so we've got a question here about, have you ever tested the length of the bullets and what impact it has on sales, i.e. should you go short or long?
Well, I think you should probably do a selection, you know, which is sometimes there are some points that you have to have a longer bullet point for, because otherwise you're not communicating what the customer is actually looking for. And then other listings, you know, you can have much shorter. But I think, you know, it really has to depend on the product and what information. I think what I do see is kind of overly wordy bullet points that people have just done because they're stuffing keywords in, and that is never a good thing. Yeah. So I think, you know, what you've got to do is think like the shopper, not the seller. Again, getting into the right mentality, and communicate the things that the customer needs to know in order to make a buying decision. So, you know, there may be, I don't think there are that many examples of things where you'd only have a few words in a bullet point, but, you know, I certainly don't think you have to have long, and I do see it quite a lot, people really rambling in bullet points because they're just keyword stuffing.
But with the bullet points, make them punchy, you know, have the beginning something eye-catching, and, you know, you can then try and expand it a bit with a sentence, but let people at least be able to scan through it and see, okay, these are 5 useful, important things about this product.
Well, I think that's where the features and benefits comes in again, because I think the punchy bit, like depending on the product, should be like a benefit. So why is it that someone should buy it? And then with some products, you absolutely need the features. You know, it's not about the benefit, because there are some products where really they might not have that many benefits. Like a cushion cover is a cushion cover. You know, you don't really need to ramble on for 20 pages on why someone needs a cushion cover. They either what they need to know is how big it is, whether it's got a zip. You know,
does
really
it fit? Do I like it?
And will it fit? And do I like the picture? Which the picture will sell it for you anyway.
Yes. Okay. Did you, Shelley? I missed what question you were answering, but there's one from Attila about can you go over again what you changed in your reply to customers who asked for a refund? So just reiterate what you now say to people.
What I literally now say is, hi there. I understand. I see you've had a refund. My fault rate's really low, and I'm always really interested as to why. So I just say my return rate's really low, and I'm always really interested to find out more. If you wouldn't mind just letting me know why you're getting a refund. Best wishes, Cara. That's it.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's like a normal email that you would sort of email to someone rather than a long sort of orchestrated message. Also, I think Will said, if you're brand registered with 𝗍𝐵𝐶, is it still worth writing a product description on the listing? Absolutely, because I think it still gets checked at the back end. So, you know, it's just, I mean, to be honest, you probably could just sit and put 2,000 characters of keywords if you wanted to, because it's not going to get seen. It's not a bad idea.
I'm not sure it's indexed, Cara, but you can test that easily by putting a random word in it, like squiggle piggle, and then searching for that with your ASIN later and see if that shows up. So you can test it.
We should test on that one.
I don't think it's indexed last time I heard, so yeah.
Okay. And then
nice
the value
idea.
about putting a brand in. Sorry, I was just going to say there's a value about putting a brand in the title at all. Well, it depends on whether you've actually got a brand or not. Because if you haven't really got a brand and you've just got a product that you've called it something, probably not, because no one's really genuinely going to be looking for it. But if you've actually got a brand that people will be looking for because they've heard of you via social media, online, whatever, they've seen you on TV, then yes, it's worth putting the brand in the title. But I put mine now mainly at the end.
Absolutely.
I would also add that the way you discover that is by looking at your PPC reports and to look at how many times your product and your brand are leading to at least clicks, forget about the sales. And then if you then go and put it into Amazon, you'll find that if your brand comes up with your product, when you put it into there, that actually you've got some search volume against your brand name. And in that scenario, it might be that all your competitors are trying to compete for your brand name in PPC. It might not be because you're as famous as Cara, obviously, but it does mean that the system is beginning to recognize your brand associated with, you know, that product, a snooze cover or whatever you call it.
Yeah, I mean, there's also, in some categories, Amazon will try and force you to put your brand at the beginning of a listing. When that happens, you have to just do it and try and move it later.
Yeah.
But it's not all categories, it's not always enforced. The other thing is, just echoing what the others have said, it depends a bit on where you are with your branding. If you've just created a brand and you just have one product, then there's not much value in putting the brand name in the title. But if you are starting to expand the range within a certain niche, and there's other products you want people to connect with, then it starts to make more sense to start branding more heavily on Amazon. But if no one's searching for it and no one cares about it, then what's it adding? And if it's not adding anything, it doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, and I mean, also presumably your sales name will be your brand name anyway, so that will get flagged up regardless if people are looking for it. Plus, you might even say it in the features or in the bullet points or the product description as well, so that it can be picked up that way.
Is it okay to put your email in reply to reviews? My understanding is that it is. And Shelley just replied to that 1 second ago. You've done the bullet points one already, I think, short and long bullet points. There's a question from Sul about if you had to give 2 tips to a new person selling on Amazon in regard to what they should and shouldn't do on a listing, what are the kind of 2 other beginner's tips you would give?
Well, I always say when you're starting out to ask your friends and family what they would actually look for. Like, don't just actually show them the product and say, right, what would you look for if you were looking for this?
Yeah.
Because like I say, you've got to go back to basics and think like a buyer, not a seller. So as I said, you know, I've got this blue plastic, you know, I mean, it might offer great hydration, but actually it's a drinking thing, you know. That's not the best example, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but I think when you're doing product design and product research,
you know,
yeah,
so you know, exactly. So just go back to basics. I think being basic is not a bad thing in the nicest possible way. And what's the other tip I'd give. I'd also say that if you've got any friends who are good with words, marketing, or, you know, work in a corporate environment and maybe work more with words, ask them just to look it over in terms of whether or not it's kind of properly formatted. Does it make sense? Does it read easily, etc.? Because I do think that's one of the things that I spot the most on listings, is that it's bad English. And bad English immediately brings up distrust from buyers, because they immediately assume, as I do, I immediately assume, well, it's somebody in China who doesn't speak English properly, and they're not going to treat me well because they're not local, blah, 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 you know. That's all. I know that sounds awful to say it, but I do think that's how people think. And I have bought stuff from Chinese sellers where it's cost me like £1.50 and taken 6 weeks to ship, because it's some rubbish my daughter wants, which everyone, you know. So, but if it's something I'm buying for myself, then probably most of the time, you know, I will be looking for somebody who's in the UK or local, or speaks or looks like they are, you know, they've written good enough English. And I do think that's one of the things that lets a lot of listings down, which is a shame.
And use things like Hemingway, just sanity check your English and make sure you're not being too wordy. It's just a little online app you can put some copy into, and it will tell you if you're being too wordy, or you know, if there's just simple ways to improve the flow of what you're writing.
And be punchy as well.
Yeah.
You know, because people haven't got time, or like nowadays, I think it's actually been proven that the human being has a lower attention span than a goldfish. So basically, you know, writing long sentences, it's much better to write short, sharp, boom, boom, boom. So quite often what people do is they'll write a really long sentence, and then what you can do is you just go, right, really long sentence, full stop, start new sentence, full stop, start new sentence, and have 3 sentences rather than one very long one.
Yeah, and the thing I would add to that is, do make sure that you create a list of your keywords. I call it a keyword database, and what I tend to make sure that we do is we plot what keywords are going into the title, and we pick some of the most important keywords for that area. Then we plot what goes into the bullet points, and then we plot what we dump into the product description, which is less important. One of the things that you will notice, though, when you're looking at your listing on mobile, is because the product description comes first, the early part of the product description actually probably does get indexed and does count. And so therefore you should write that early part of the product description a bit like you write bullet 1. So a good summary of everything that you're saying on a PC, because that's the first thing you see on mobile.
Yeah.
Another question just asking, how do you put video on listings? It's always a very popular question.
If you've got brand registry,
yeah,
in the US, you can add videos. You can also add them as customer reviews as well. So you can customers are allowed to upload them. So if you have anybody you know who could upload a video, then, you know, I think I did that in the very, very early days. I'm sure I'd get my wrist slapped 1,000 times over. But, you know, yeah, that's basically how to get video, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's in the brand registry area to perhaps if somebody's asking the technical question. So it isn't in your product listing area. It's in,
and you have to ask, sorry.
It's in the brand area, and that's where you upload it.
And it's also really annoying to access because you have to go to inventory, and then it's like in the inventory drop down. So it's right down the bottom, which is like manage and upload and manage your videos in a completely random place, nothing to do with like advertising, promotion, or anything like that. It's really weird.
Okay.
But you can add them. I just created a lot of my videos in Canva, and I just put like a cover message on the front, and then, you know, whatever the video is, and then, you know, and that's it. I've done that a few times. I think the thing is, you know, just do what you can. And if you can't do something, understand why you're doing it first, and then get someone else to do it for you.
Yeah, but a really good thing to do is probably to go on a bunch of these websites where you can get people to do like a video for you as a video review. And you pay them like $100 or $500 or whatever it is that you can, and then you can post that on YouTube, probably on their channel as well, and then put that up as a video on Amazon too.
I see someone's recommended. Oh, actually, Shelley, you've recommended the background removal tool. You know, do you know remove.bg?
I actually
Another
just
similar
use Shutterstocks.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay, because I use remove.bg because it's brilliant. I've only found out about it like over the last few weeks, and I've been removing the background on everything.
All right.
Always
well,
picture of your ex-husband. Just gone.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't remove men.
cool.
So, well, any other questions that we've missed?
Something about, there's a question here from 𝗱𝐿 about the importance of storytelling versus keywords, but how do you compete actually with some of these Chinese sellers who, well, I think the answer to that is who get to the top of page one seemingly with perhaps poor listings. And I think the answer to that is they're doing other strategies to get to the top of page one. It isn't just about the listing. So that's a session for another day, maybe.
Yeah,
but you also have to remember that they won't, if they're not converting, they won't stick. And if your listing is converting better, then you can over time start to build up your presence on the site.
And that's why also I was saying about keywords, about not always going for the ones that are at the top of the tree. So don't always go for the biggest keywords, because then you are going to be fighting with. So if, for example, you've got 3 keywords and each keyword gets 3,000 searches, or you have 10 keywords that each get 300. But the point is also, like I was saying with my example of the unicorn sequin blanket, you're actually getting someone who's looking specifically for something rather than someone who's just looking for a sequin blanket and actually they're never going to buy a unicorn one. So I think that's the other thing, is to be strategic and think about, again, what is the shopper looking for, and matching some of those smaller, more kind of achievable keywords. Start ranking, start converting, because you will convert because you're using words that people are looking for and match your listing, hopefully. And then you can then start moving up the levels and then start including the bigger ones in, because then, as I said, you've got a mishmash between big keywords and smaller keywords.
Yeah.
And anyone here?
And Helium 10's thing is really good, that for the putting the keywords in, where you can put your listing in with like the title, the bullet points and the product description, and you can highlight when you put your keywords in on the left, and it highlights them with like red for really good and orange for medium and green, or it could be the other way around. I'm not sure. It's probably the other way around.
Yeah, Peter just said, that's exactly right, Peter. It's what Cara was saying. The smaller keywords often have higher buyer intent than the larger volume. The water bottle is a start of search. I've just started thinking I want to buy a water bottle, but the 1 litre BPA-free water bottle with built-in straw, that's because I know exactly what I want and I'm ready to buy. And so, although it has fewer lower search volume, is actually when people make the purchase.
And it has to be blue.
It has to be blue. Clearly.
You know, because that's the other thing.
In the other half of the kitchen, it has to be red.
Yeah, well, no, my kitchen's red, so actually it should be red.
Cool, good. Well, I think that we should probably bring the session to a close. People are needing to get on, I can see. But thank you very much. It's been an awesome session. And you can see that from all the questions and the interaction, and you know, the fact that people have obviously enjoyed it. We should also thank our sponsors. We couldn't do some of this. Oh, thank you, my eye. Yeah, I really need it to get better. So we should thank our sponsors, who are Payoneer, who are Nozzle, who are going to be on a webinar with us next week, where we're going to be talking about measuring customer lifetime value. So this is something that basically where you have a product that sells repeatedly. So products like supplements or indeed other consumables, you probably want to look at how much of a repeat buyer, how much your repeat buyer ratio is. And Nozzle have a tool together with the PPC tool that they demonstrated a few weeks ago that is bundled into that, and that really helps you with all of that. Plus, we're going to get some extra tips on PPC. So, hey, Thank you very much to everyone. I hope you had a really great session today. Everybody will get to see the recording, and Christian will send out an email with your link to the recording. Yeah, we couldn't do this without you, and life would be so terrible in isolation without you all. So thank you very much. Take care and see you next week.
Take care, everybody. See you soon.
Bye.